Hi again. This is Heather with Rebel Hearts, and I'm here sharing my journey with depression right now. And this morning's journaling time and cards were really good, and so I wanted to share again. This is part of me just sharing my journey as I move through and process, being in a state of depression, but doing so from a place of empowerment instead of victimhood. And so last night I found myself, I was super testy and not really nice. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening with me? And I realized I've been struggling with sleep and, my thinking is all over the place and all of that. And so, this morning I was just not in the greatest of energetic spaces. And so, I even wrote down in my journal, I was like, I need help, and I was just calling on my unseen help, my angels, my ancestors, my guardians, my guides, and just asking for their help, asking for their guidance, what do I need here? And as I was sitting there with that, I was like, okay, well, let's look at this, let's look at what I have control over, right? And so I wrote down, I said, my depression management tools. And I have journaling and pulling cards in there because obviously that's just part of, my process. And I wrote talking to and with my unseen support, my guides. Observing my thoughts and my feelings to learn from them, looking at what they are, and then also looking at where they're rooted. Are they in fear or are they in love? Where are my thoughts? And what are they telling me about my state of being, if you will? But then also tuning into my highest self, tuning into my inner healer, being open and honest and authentic with myself and where I'm at, so looking at last night, why am I so testy? What is going on? And it really boiled down to, I just haven't been very good at managing my own energy. I'm like, oh, okay. I wrote being really real with my true, being really open and honest with myself and where I'm at, it's so important. But then also, what I have is learning that patience and compassion and non-judgment for myself through this, and then also my self-care practices, getting some exercise, getting outside, watching what I eat or whether I'm eating, because sometimes in these depressed states, I'm not hungry and I won't eat. And that does impact me. It affects my sugar level, it affects, my energy, it affects my sleep, which all then, compounds whether I'm feeling depression more intensely or, if I'm able to move through it with a little bit more ease, it makes a difference. And so looking at these different things as tools, I realize, these are different elements that I have, and it's learning how to use them in a way that supports me, using them in a way that moves me forward, and then practicing the use of them in, a positive way. Because the reality is, just to give you kind of some perspective, just back in 2016, I had been living with depression since, a young teen, and I was suicidal, I was an addict, I was a cutter. These were all things that were just part of my life that not everyone saw. Very few people really saw any of that. I have a feeling that a lot of people who knew me then were like, I had no idea, and that's where I was. And so one of my goals has very much been mastering myself, mastering myself through love, because I don't want to fall back in those old patterns. Those patterns were there in a weird way to try to protect me, but they got to a point where they were hurting me more than they were helping me, and I don't want those, and I also don't want to be easy prey for heavy energies, those vampire energies. I don't want that, so this mastering myself, I have to use all of these tools to help me along, to help me move forward, And so I said, I'm going to stand in my empowered self and move forward in love as I release more and more of those old ways through each season, through each cycle that I move into and out of depression. That's where I want to be. I want to face depression from an empowered state, not a victim state. And, just recognizing that now I'm in a place where I can live consciously versus living through it unconsciously. That unconscious place had me in those suicidal spaces, had me in those cutting spaces, had me in those addictions. You know what I mean? And that's not who I choose to be anymore. So it's learning how to move differently, how to move forward in new ways, and from a conscious place. And so, I wrote down, I said, managing your own energy, using your various supports that you have, is critical in your ability to move through this with ease. You can either move through with ease or get hung up somewhere because you aren't managing your energy well. And last night, my testiness was very much an outward expression of me not managing my energy well, and so it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice to live consciously, especially having lived decades unconsciously, and so I was just like, all right, so here I am, and I have these tools. Now let's look at, what do I need to look at today? What do I need to be aware of today so that I can keep moving forward? And that's when I go to my cards. And so today I actually pulled from the same 3 card decks, but I just pulled one from each. So the first card that I pulled was from the Soul Mirror deck, and it's Destiny. And it says past or future focused and present. So that's kind of the shadow and the light. And what really was speaking to me about this is being able to trust and listen to myself and my own inner compass. And so then I went to the Deviant Moon deck for my shadow side. I'm like, okay, what's my shadow side? And I got the 9 of Swords, which, I wrote down, I was like, well, you're keeping yourself up, overthinking and freaking out about nightmares, worst case things. You're also having trouble with sleep, so poor sleep, and then that all pushes you towards, low energy. And I just started writing. I said, dwelling on or allowing repeated thoughts of stressful things, getting caught up in the stresses of life and in other people's energies. And I said, I was just writing to myself, like, this is what lowers my energy and makes sleep more difficult, which then compounds things even more, and it hinders my ability to move through this with ease. So, this was a lot about, again, going back to mastering my thinking. And a way to master my thinking is to be present, to not get caught up in that past or that future focused thinking, but to just be here now, recognize where's my energy now. Last night I was so caught up in everything around me that I wasn't with me, and that came out. And it affected my emotions and how I felt and, all that fun stuff. And, and so again, coming back to mastering myself, not being caught up in the runaway thinking. So then I asked what my light side was, and this I pulled from the Wildwood Tarot. And I thought this was kind of funny. I had to sit with this one for a minute. But it's the 4 of Vessels, and it says boredom. And I was like, what? What does this mean, as far as being my light side? And I wrote, get bored of stress. Look at it from a detached space. Be the observer instead of the participant. And I was like, okay. So then my light side is having the power to observe, having the ability to detach from those thoughts, those ways of thinking, and then also, be in a state of presence so that I can choose my forward thoughts. Where am I moving forward with my thoughts? Where do I want to go with them? And I said, when it comes to fulfilling my purpose in this life, I must be present with myself in each moment and remain conscious from higher perspectives. I'm learning to trust myself within states of depression and to not judge myself in them. And so what came to me here is like, it's about mastering my own attitude, believing and trusting in myself, even when things are not, what it would be perceived as ideal, you know? But to really believe and trust in myself in all the seasons and all the cycles that I go through with depressed states, whether it's weather and seasons literally, or it's my hormones, or, my own whatever, whatever the cause is, whatever the trigger is, I can still live from an empowered space within it, because there's always something I have control over. I can be present with myself. I can be honest with myself and open with myself. I can observe and learn from what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing and how I'm expressing myself, and I can look at all of that with compassion and non-judgment and be patient with myself as I learn to move through in new ways. We're learning to not so readily fall back on old patterns that lead down dark paths. I don't want to go there anymore. That's not how I want to live. I don't want to live unconsciously. I don't want to live from that victimhood. I want to live empowered. I want to live, being a master of myself, regardless of what myself struggles with. I can be that master. I can be that empowered, because that is the power that is in me, and when I can tap into that, when I hold on to it, then I can move forward empowered. I can move forward differently and not have it get me stuck, and so when I bring this back into the space of like my business and being able to grow my business and really step into the role that I'm wanting to be for people, not letting being aware and paying attention to, how am I thinking about it? What is my attitude about it? Where is that, and what is it showing me? Am I stuck somewhere in the past or in the future? Is there that pressure coming in that doesn't need to be there? What is it? And just learning to be present with my thoughts, with my attitude, and be real with myself and say, okay, is this who I want to be? Am I stuck in a fear-based thing, or am I moving forward in love? Where am I at? What am I doing? And just recognizing that each moment is my choice, and that is my power. Our power is only found in the present moment, and that's where we need to be so that we can wield it, the way that we are meant to. We can do so consciously, we can do so unconsciously, we can do so in love, or we can do so in fear, but the bottom line is that it is our choice. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today, and, I'm gonna see where we go from here. And so, yeah, find your tools to help you move through with ease, because these seasons hit, these cycles hit, and it's just learning to roll with them, keep on moving. So until I share again, have a blessed day and so much love to you.